Thank you so much, Andrew, for a fascinating conversation there with Annette and Simon. It was interesting to see so many of you engaged in that. We could see all the questions coming in, and there were still some left. So it was lovely to see that even after such a long day, many of you probably, spent the day with us, that even at our very last session, there's plenty of you that are really interested in what we saw. And I found that absolutely fascinating. I did get a sneak preview of the pre-record, but the live I found just as interesting. So thank you very much for spending day 2 with us here at the Beyond Conference 2020. Thank you for all your tweets and all your messages and conversations and networking that we can see that's gone on, and for taking full advantage of some of the session spaces that we've had and the Meet the Makers. Day 2 is over, and if I reflect back on today, I think it's been one where we have seen real conversation and challenge around the success and future of virtual production. I think it's highlighted some of the challenges that present itself when we think about virtual production, but actually also leaves me feeling a bit positive in that if we could go back to some of the contributions that we heard during the session this morning, the fact that there is such a large number of free resources now that are accessible, meaning that those creatives that are at home can kind of fiddle around and start to innovate and create at home. And I think that's just a nice reminder to everyone who, in some of the days during the last 9 months where you may be losing a bit of motivation or ideas, and feel kind of consumed in your own bubble, that actually there are some things that you can do that present itself as an opportunity to do in the home. And I think Annette touched on that really well in the last session, Current Rising. I think there was another lovely reminder, kind of wiser than his years it appeared, in the Monkey Nation, where we saw Ham talk so openly about his collaboration with the Opera House, and also with who he kind of describes as mentors who played to their strengths and were able to support him. And I think that's a lesson for all of us in the creative industries when we look at kind of all the convergence and tomorrow's theme of emergence, just how much collaboration, whether it's from researchers and creatives and investors, all coming together, and actually the strength that has and the output that can come from that. And I think that's a really nice reminder from Ham, just talking about how his own experience is clearly someone that's come from kind of leaders, a background of leaders and change makers, and how he's not just used his art actually to engage and create content, which to Haz's point earlier today is so important. It's what we need. It's the lifeblood of what we're doing. But it's just a nice reminder actually that we can all use our art not only to understand how to work with others, but also to make a point about things that are really important to us, like climate change, in the way that Ham has. Really intrigued by what we learned today about events, and that actually, I think one key takeaway that I took away from the session earlier, where Hugh and Maya and Gabrielle were speaking, I just found it really interesting about the fact that you kind of have these one-off events, which to us as a sort of audience member or attendee just appears as this one event in the year, but actually all the work that goes on behind the scenes sounds obvious, but all the work that goes on behind the scenes to make that one event happen. But then actually there's this need from us as audience members actually saying, but in between that, can we have a bit of interaction? And we want to stay plugged in. We want to know what you're doing. We want to know what's coming up. And Hugh spoke really well, I think, about the challenges that present themselves when you're trying to balance when that information can go out, and when some of the things that you're planning in really uncertain times can actually go out. But it does highlight, I think, the importance of us as consumers and audience members and fellow creatives, but how much we want to stay on the pulse and feel included throughout a year, even in the absence even in the presence of the key and main event that we have. I think that technology has also provided so many opportunities actually for more of us to engage in things. I think it's opened up the doors from an accessibility perspective, with lots of people who perhaps are having to be at home in normal circumstances, and I speak here with my sort of inclusion hat on, and actually some venues can make it extremely difficult for individuals with particular disabilities, for example, to engage or to attend things. And although there's been lots of work done around this, and there's lots of organisations trying to push that, I think it's brilliant actually that today and yesterday have shown ways in which we can bring that content into the living room, but it's still try our best to still create a really live feeling. I think we saw that with the Tempest, but I think we've also seen that today with Current Rising and the Wallace and Gromit Fix It that we saw earlier today. I think also though, when I reflect on the last 2 days, and I'm sure it'll be something that we're probably going to pick up on across the whole conference really, is just how much we still do yearn for that human interaction. And you're right, I think convergence, there was a lot happening already, but if anything, I feel like the global pandemic has pushed us all into a space where we think we have to create these kind of robust processes that sit around us to make sure that we are, if you like, future-proof for the unknown, the things that we just couldn't possibly ever anticipate that's going on. But yeah, I think that there was one point that was raised earlier actually, which I wanted to touch on, was just, you know, the idea of these venues kind of going online and how much they can include more, but it's also quite a pain point when in some instances you take away some of the beauty of what could happen in a live experience when it goes online. So it's one of those things, isn't it, that I think hopefully over the next 4 days we'll all kind of come to some sort of idea on where we all sit with it as individuals and certainly as creatives. I also thought it was interesting, I'm glad someone asked this question about the Tempest and why it is the narrative that so many choose to use in this sort of augmented reality and VR. And I loved the response that we got from Annette today, where she spoke about, she feels it's the text, you know, it's a piece of change, a piece about change and transformation, and I think that's certainly what we've all had to get used to in 2020. So it actually feels quite relevant that it's not only one of those pieces, but that it fits into this mergence of technology and the arts. And also, what I thought was interesting is, I had mentioned this earlier, yesterday, in yesterday's conference, I mentioned about the fact that VR felt like something that picked up certainly in lockdown, although it's been kind of humming around for many years. Certainly in my years as a journalist and broadcaster, it came up many times. But what I've noticed usually is that it came back in the lockdown period, and I mentioned yesterday that this was because lots of friends and family were using these virtual reality headsets to go on holidays and to almost leave the house, because it was at a time when they weren't able to do that. And I thought it interesting earlier when Simon spoke about the fact that actually VR introduced us to these kind of newer experiences, and although you're trying to keep the narrative in a lot of the work that you're doing, it's not that we're perhaps remembering. It is these different things, it's these new elements that VR brings to a story that actually we're looking out for and that the audience takes away. I just thought that was a really interesting observation. And I think to the point that was made at the end of that session, you know, maybe the market for this new emergence is big enough, maybe not, but I guess only time will tell. But I think today's been brilliant, and I think there's been some really fascinating conversations. I feel like I'm using that word quite a lot, but even now as I'm sort of doing this roundup, my mind's still ticking through lots of creative thoughts and ideas that have come as a result of today's sessions. But I think what we have to look forward to tomorrow is emergence, and I probably sound quite chaotic in my head where I've got these ideas swimming around, but actually I think that tomorrow hopefully will drive a little bit of clarity around that, and we are going to look at what chaos is coming out of some of the insights that we found and some of the research that we've had access to, and what can we actually rely on, and again what tools, what skills and what support are thinking needed to drive this next stage. So tomorrow is going to be a day where we address all of that. And so I will see you bright and early in the morning, but not to forget that we also have the Creative China stage that will be with us tomorrow too. So you'll be spoilt for choice really. But no, I hope you've enjoyed today and found it really useful. And if you can, hang around and make use of some of our networking and online experiences that you can see on the Beyond website. Aside from that, please do share with us how you found today. It's day 2, of course, via our social media platforms, so using the Beyond Conf hashtag and @Beyond Conference. And that's it for us today, but we welcome you back tomorrow morning bright and early, and we look forward to it. So have a lovely evening, and I'll see you then.